Hi, and welcome to a fresh episode of Platypod Perspectives, where every single time we find an amazing image like this one. And then we get to talk to the photographer who created this image so we can figure it all out. And this time around, it's Charlene Sligting. Charlene, how are you?
Hi, Larry. I am blessed. Happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation to be part of Platypod Perspectives
Of
today.
course, of course. And I saw that great image over on our blog, on our learning blog at platypod.com, and I was blown away. Now, what you need to realize is I have a lot of friends in the real estate business, very, very good friends, and they own a big brokerage and they get lots and lots and lots of pictures taken. And so when I saw your image and multiple images, and I've been by your website, it's just amazing to me when I look at this and I see how perfect it is in so many ways. The lines, the vertical lines are perfectly vertical. There is perspective here, but there aren't bent angles. And you've balanced the light. And the thing that stood out to me as a photographer, you've balanced the light indoors and outdoors. And it's a smooth, even light all over indoors, not shadowy corners or shadowy edges or anything. And then the outdoor light isn't blown out like we're all used to getting when we take that picture. And I want to talk to you a little bit about this. So tell me, well, first of all, how did you get into real estate photography?
I have been blessed to do real estate photography for more than a decade. I started as a family photographer in corporate branding. A friend of ours got her real estate license and she said, "Hey, I need pictures taken of this house. Can you do that?" And the misconception is that if you can take pictures of people, you can take pictures of houses. And so the first one I did, those lines, they weren't so great. Sometimes photographers, we show when we first started and where we are now. And let me tell you, I've come a long way in more than a decade. But that's how I got started, was because someone needed a real estate photographer. And over this last decade, I've learned more about my craft.
You've done a beautiful job. And I see so many real estate photos that are just not quite that great. And one of the other things I know from behind the scenes, I'm friends with the folks over at Kelby One. And I know you've taught a class over there, not just how to take these fantastic images, but more about the business side too, right?
Yes, that course teaches photographers how to get into real estate photography, the beginning part of it. But when I started out, I also recognized that there weren't a lot of people sharing knowledge about the business decorum of it all. I think that is so important, that we talk about that, because real estate photography is different than any other photography. It's not just about mini sessions, it's also about creating relationships with realtors and also the homeowners. And so I wanted to bring that perspective into my Kelby course so that people would have another perspective, a different look through the lens, so to speak.
That's fantastic. Well, I want to pick your brain a little bit about this image, and then we'll show the behind the scenes of the image too, and another hero image that goes along with this. So let's look at this. First of all, you've got beautifully balanced light throughout this entire room. So you've got overhead can lights, and you're accommodating for those, and you can see them softly on the cabinetry. You can see just the peak, just a little tip of a can light in the ceiling. You can see lights coming from underneath the cabinets, but there aren't hot spots. That's one thing that amazed me. And then the outdoor lighting is balanced throughout. So I see trees, I see a very distant parked car, I see like a lawn, and there's beautiful texture and lighting throughout outdoors. And then it's all balanced from indoors. And every single vertical line of these cabinets is vertical. Let's take it piece by piece. How did you balance the lighting and have this gorgeous lighting on the cabinets and the outdoors and indoors? How did you do all that?
Well, if we could just step back one way. Thank you for catching that I didn't Photoshop out that car, because after I submitted the image and I saw it online, I was like, oh, I forgot the car. I had everything else perfect. So, so Yeah, that car should have been photoshopped out. So this picture, I was paying attention to every single portion of it, like you were saying. This was for a construction company. So the can light had to be there to show. And if you see how the light is cascading down, there are also lights underneath the cabinets, but not light underneath the hood of the stove, trying to balance that out. And the cabinets underneath were tungsten lighting. And so for lighting, the tungsten, for those aren't familiar with tungsten lighting, tungsten gives a warm glow, almost orange, yellow tones. And then we have the daylight outside that is daylight. And then we have the can light above that was a daylight bulb. So we had all these competing things. And we also then have the tonality of the countertops that had hints of yellow in there. So it was very important to balance all that out. For this particular image, what I do is I do HDR, I bracket. And so we do 5 to 7 brackets. I also do sometimes Flambient, which then that is another light source that we're putting in there. And so you balance all this out, but a lot of this can be done in post-production too, to have that be a seamless image as you have shared, which is important. The lights are one thing, but then we also have underneath the countertops where we want to see what's going on. And so you have to make sure your tripod is high enough so that we're not catching underneath the cabinets, but yet we're showing underneath where the countertops are. That is a trick as well. And then also, I call myself a visual storyteller. When I come into the properties, I look at the space and I look to see, what are we trying to say? I begin with the end in mind. What is the story of this kitchen that we are conveying? And I take my angles and I shoot my angles based upon the story that I'm conveying. And then I also had to pay attention to what was going on with the details of the tile on the back and how those angles were going, because we want to make sure that they're concise, that it pulls your eye into it and not distracts you to pull away from it. Because you can see there is, it's a beautiful pattern, but how are we going to capture that angles of those to show the dimension and depth of it so that it doesn't just look flat? So those were some of the things that in consideration.
There's a lot going on there. And so with respect to the multiple exposures and HDR and all that exposure blending, I imagine there's quite a bit that goes into post to balance the brightness. Is that why I see depth when I look out the window? And I also see depth indoors in the kitchen where it's appropriately lit. Is that what's going on?
In that particular property, I did 7 different exposure values in order to capture the true beauty of that, because there is the huge window that the homeowner can look out of while they're doing the dishes. And that was an added value feature that the construction company put in. So I needed to make sure that we told the story of the sink so that mom and dad could be at the sink doing dishes and watching their kids outside. So I had to pull that story into the story of the kitchen.
That is so cool. Now, with respect to this, people that are photographers in general, what do they need to know? What do they need to learn? How can they uh, get up to speed to be better at real estate photography? And then I've got another question about it. How do you then take your skill set and convince people that are hiring real estate photographers that what you're doing is better?
Well, to answer the first part of your question, how does someone get into real estate photography and learn how to be like me? Go over to Kelby One and take my course.
Okay.
It's an hour and 45 minutes of your time, and you can take sections of it or you can just time block. And I encourage photographers and business owners, that's something I do, is time block. And so time block your success by learning how to be the best real estate photographer that you can be. And that first step is going over to take this course, because I share so much knowledge that we won't be able to cover in this interview this time that we're talking, but you can always have me back and we can expand upon it as well. But with that being said, it really comes down to, what are you trying to do? There are real estate photographers who will come in, they take the picture, and then they go. And I call those turn and burn photographers. And No insult to people who are doing that. That is their business model, and that's how they're choosing to do their business. For Docha, what I do is I come in and we set the stage. We make sure the garbage cans are removed. We make sure the faucets are straight. We make sure the vases are correct. And so you begin with the end in mind and determine what's the story you want to tell people. And any photographer coming in to take pictures of properties needs to decide on what they're trying to tell. It goes back to being a visual storyteller. Uh, as a photographer, decide if you want to come in and take pictures, or come in and decide if you want to level up and provide the concierge service. And that's what Docha does. That's what I do, is we provide a higher level of service, and we take the extra time to be at the property to make sure everything is okay, make sure the height of my camera is okay. Something that we really should touch base on is a lot of people who are starting out, they get these wide angle lenses. And so you're 14 to 35 and people are shooting at 14. Well, that distorts things. You have to have it so that it looks like your eye would see it. When we do portrait photography, you shoot at 35 or 50. Like when I do corporate branding, I use my 50 millimeter fixed focal, done. So for real estate photography, I actually shoot in a sweet spot of 18 to 22. And I don't go usually below the 18. And people are like, well, then you're not getting the whole kitchen. But then again, we have to talk about what's the why. Why are we taking this photo? Over, if you're on the picture to the right, there's a hallway that actually has doors that are an oak color. If I were to shoot this at 14, then I would have that hallway. And that's not the story that I'm trying to tell. The story we're telling is this beautiful renovated kitchen. And that's what I would encourage photographers to do who are starting in this. Decide what type of photographer you want to be. Do you want to come in, take pictures and go? Or do you want to come in and tell a story? And that's how you separate yourself from other real estate photographers, other real estate multimedia creators. Storyteller or just taking pictures. It's that simple. Choose which one you are.
Well, I think you're nailing it. You are absolutely nailing it. I want to also show our viewers a little bit of additional information. And one of them is this BTS image. So we get to see a little bit more, and tell us a little bit about what you have going on here. That's a Platypod piece of gear, isn't it?
Yes, that is in my tools of success, my arsenal that helps me elevate my business. And this is another component that people who are in real estate photography or looking to get into real estate photography should do, is have tools in your toolkit for success. And my Platypod Extreme has been a game changer for me. The construction company's site manager wanted a detailed shot of that tile that's there. I could not get that with a traditional standing 3-legged tripod. And so I went in my camera bag, my camera case, and I got my Platypod Extreme out and I put it on there. And so you can see the details that is there. You'll also see when I took the picture, I actually had the candle sitting on the shelf, because when we decorate and stage, we do things in 3. So there was 3 across. But when I actually had taken the shot and in post-processing, I felt that candle distracted from the visual background. And so I removed it, because the story is the tile. It goes back to, what is the story that we are conveying to the people who are seeing our imagery? And it's the details and the depth of that tile. It's not the candle.
You have a real perfectionism going on in this, and it's obvious why you're that type of photographer that's providing that next level of service. Now, I found you on the internet and at charleneslighting.com, right? So there's that. Where else can people find out about you and learn more?
I have my Instagram account at Real Estate Docha, and Docha is DOCHA. It's Irish. It means more to come. And I have my website, and I'm on Kelby One. And next year, I will be having a book published, and I'm in the process of writing that book as well. So when that comes out, you'll have to have me back on so I can share all that knowledge with people even more so. But I'd like to point out something really quick. You had mentioned price, and I often get asked, well, what do you charge for price? And I find that to be very interesting because you have to look at the tools that's in your arsenal of success. And for instance, my Platypod Extreme and the ball head that we have, those are costs that you have to take in consideration when you're charging people for your services. It's an investment. The best advice I ever got was from Skip Cohen. And he had said, not everyone's your client, and don't race anyone to the bottom of the market. I took a workshop with him, and that was life-changing for me as a photographer, because what I charge sometimes is double of what somebody else charges. And I have people who call me and ask me to match those lower prices, and I don't discount my prices. And when they want me to discount my prices and they say, well, I like your work better than theirs, I said, well, then this is my price. And if you want to pay that price, you should hire A, B, and C company. And that's their choice. We all start somewhere, but know your value, know your worth, and always learn and add these tools like the Platypod Extreme to your arsenal of success. Because when you have a toolbox of success, that's what separates you from other people. And then you charge what you're worth, and that's all the difference. And then you deliver a spectacular product, a perfect image, because of the fact that you've took the time to tell the story. And that's how I become a six-figure real estate photographer, is because of the fact of my attention to detail and knowing, like Skip said, not everyone's my client and I'm not racing anyone to the bottom of the market. So I went off a little tangent there, but this is a really big discussion that I have with a lot of photographers who approach me for business coaching and advice. So that is a little extra bonus. So.
I think that's perfect. This is kind of stuff that I love. I've been an entrepreneur myself for years, and I have a real appreciation for people who don't compete on price, that you deliver something that people find the value in. And I found real value in today's discussion, and also learning a little bit more about how you shot the shots and what goes into it, and the focal length that you use, and then the post-processing. There's just so much that goes into it. And I think our photographer friends will really appreciate your perspective today. Thank you so much, Charlene. Do appreciate
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
my
I hope
pleasure.
everyone has a wonderful day.
Very good. Thank you so much. You know, one of the things that I love about Platypod Perspectives is the different perspectives, literally, that these great photographers have. And we're going to ask you to check out Charlene's work online. There'll be links in the descriptions. And then also come back again next time, because you never know what you're about to learn.